Hello everyone, welcome back to our YouTube channel. My name is Daniel, and today in this video we'll be covering my round 1 game from the Midwest Class Championships, which finished yesterday. This was actually an over-the-board tournament, which I played in Chicago. And let's take a look at what happened in the round 1 game I played. So I'm playing black. Here my opponent plays d4. Just my typical King's Indian here, and my opponent actually goes for this h3 sideline. The idea is to set up g4. Originally h3 looks a little bit quiet, but g4, and then my opponent's plan is to attack me on the king side. Castles, all pretty standard. I play a5 so that I can play knight a6, knight to c5, and a5 basically just prevents b4 so my knight doesn't get kicked out when I go attack this pawn on e4. g4, and here as a general principle I know to play c6 here, because pretty much the idea is that I'm trying to open up the center. If I open up the center, but white's king in the center would also be subjected to a little bit of danger. If you castle king side, then this attack doesn't really work because you're pushing pawns in front of your own king, so you're weakening your own king's position. And if you castle queen side, then at some point I can open up lines here and attack your king. Queen d2, knight a6, f3. Here I play rook b8. I'm trying to play b5 at some point. Here knight g2 e2, and at this point I should have played something like b5 here, which was possible. If you take here, then I can simply play b captures on c4, and this pawn is going to fall soon. And if you take, then I have this nice healthy queenside structure which I can push forward, so that castling queenside is a little bit more dangerous. So going back to the game. Here I didn't play that, I played knight c5, knight g3. Here knight e8 is a little bit passive. And here at this point, actually knight d7 was the blunder, which allowed h4. And here I'm just trying to defend with f6, and then like rook f7 or something like that. h5. c5, I realize that my plan isn't going to work, so I'm just trying to lock up the queen side here and try to focus on defending on the king side. Takes. Here to start defending, I move my king so I can play rook g8 and maybe knight f8 at some point. Knight b5 opens up an attack on this a5 point. Queen d8. And at this point I'm just purely defending. I'm just trying to consolidate my position, although this is at this point actually completely losing for black, mainly because black's position is so passive. Like if you look at this cluster of pieces here that aren't really doing much. And my opponent has the f4 g5 breaks at some point. Then back to c3. Here I play b6 just to consolidate up the structure here. Here g5. I play rook b7. I don't have f5 here because there's too many attackers. So rook b7. Here I take bishop c8. Try to open up more lines here. My idea is to try to like run the king over here, although that's a really long-winded strategy, but it's worth a try. And here I try to bring my pieces in. And here my opponent finds a really nice e5 move. It's actually the best move in the position. It's kind of like a clearance sacrifice to allow the knight to go to the e4 square and attack this bishop again. Here I play bishop f5, sacking back the pawn, because my idea is that at least I remove this knight, which can attack this bishop at some point. Here my opponent regains the pawn. And at this point it was just simply clean up for my opponent. Rook takes g7 is a final nice touch. If I take with the rook, then there's queen takes on d8, at which point I'm completely busted. In fact, I was completely busted before that. But yeah, after king to g8, rook captures on g7. This is how the game ends. And here I resign the game. So a couple takeaways from this game. I would say this game, the main issue was, as longtime viewers have seen, when I played the Quebec Open Championships, in my final round game, I had fallen victim to some sort of attack like this, where in the opening, instead of h3, in fact, my opponent had directly played the move g4. Not in this position, obviously, because my opponent could take, but like something like bishop e2, castles, bishop e3, and then here after e5 here, and a5, my opponent here played the move g4. So this was what my opponent had played in the Quebec Open Championships, at which point I gotten attacked like crazy and then actually ended up losing that game. This game, something similar happened with the h3 g4 instead. So a couple takeaways. One, I should study this variation a bit more, which I had after the game. I analyzed it thoroughly and hopefully should be able to mitigate any type of loss like this in the future when I see this type of variation. And alternatively, I also learned like some new strategies to counter this type of attack on the king side and the king's Indian by focusing on plans on the queen side. And yeah, so quite the tough loss to start off in round 1. So that means I start the tournament 0 for 1. And yeah, let's see what I can do in round 2 and see you all there in that recap. Thanks for watching.